Welcome back, budding biologists. Today, we're going to start our new unit with a very important concept in biology, cells. Let's make it make sense, shall we? All right, by the end of this video, you should be able to discuss scientific theories and explanations involving cellular complexities, explain the similarities and differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells, and compare and contrast plant cells to animal cells. We're going to begin by going back over the levels of organization. In Unit 1, we explored big picture stuff. Now we're going to zoom in and cover the levels of organization from atom up to organism. All right, for micro levels of organization, remember micro means small. We're starting at atom. Atoms are the basic unit of matter, and they combine to make up molecules. For example, carbon dioxide, which is a molecule, consists of one carbon atom bound to two oxygen atoms. So CO2 is a molecule made up of carbon and oxygen atoms. Molecules then combine to create macromolecules, such as the proteins, lipids, carbs, and nucleic acids we discussed in Unit 2. Our macromolecules combine to form our organelles. For example, ribosomes use rRNA, a nucleic acid, and specific proteins to undergo protein synthesis. Organelles, such as the ribosome, work together to make up our cells. Cells with specialized functions come together to develop our various tissues. For example, an epithelial cell makes up the lining of the renal tubes. The different tissues, with their specific functions, form our organs. Those renal tubes I just mentioned, for example, make up part of our kidneys, which is what this is showing right here. Organs, such as our kidneys, collaborate with each other to form organ systems. And organ systems, such as our urinary system right here, function together to form organisms, such as this human. I hope that made sense. Please draw a flow chart or other visual aid in your notes to remember the levels from molecule up to organism. So it is important to know molecules are made of atoms. You will not be tested over that, but molecules make up our biomolecules. Biomolecules make up organelles. Organelles make up cells. Cells form together to create tissue. Tissues work together to make up organs. Organs work together to make up organ systems. And then organ systems functioning together create organisms. All right, we are focusing over here on cells for this unit. And a big part of why cells are so important in biology is that all living things are made up of cells. That brings us to our characteristics of life. These are fundamental traits shared by all living organisms. Please be sure to write down all 8 characteristics of life and know that this is how we classify organisms as living. If something does not have all 8 classifications, biologically, it is considered not living. All right, number 1, cellular organization. All living things are composed of cells. You and I, the fish swimming at the back of our classroom, the tree in my front yard, mushrooms, bacteria, countless other forms of life all share this trait. We are all made up of cells. Number 2, reproduction. This is the process by which living things create offspring. From tiny bacteria dividing and multiplying in a drop of water to plants spreading seeds and even humans giving birth to new generations, reproduction is a fundamental part of life. Number 3, metabolism. Metabolism encompasses all the chemical reactions that occur within an organism. Think about how plants, such as an oak tree, utilize photosynthesis to harness sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide and convert them into energy, or how we obtain nutrients through digestion. For something to be classified as living, it must undergo metabolic processes such as these. Number 4, homeostasis. This is the ability of organisms to maintain a stable internal environment. Just as our bodies regulate temperature to keep it constant and maintain our well being, or how plants regulate their water balance through a process known as transpiration, all living things must maintain their internal environment. Number 5, heredity. Traits are passed from one generation to the next through DNA. Think about the unique characteristics you inherited from your parents. Perhaps your eye color, your height, or even you have dimples, perhaps. These genetic traits are examples of heredity. Number 6, response to stimuli. This refers to how living things respond to their environment. Have you ever seen a plant growing towards a window? This is known as phototropism. We're going to talk about that later in the year. And the plants are actively growing towards sources of light in order to undergo photosynthesis better. All living things respond to their external environment. Number 7, growth and development. Organisms change and evolve over time. Think of a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. Or as humans, think about how we grow and change over time. All living things must grow and develop. Number 8, adaptation. Over generations, species adapt to their environment through the process of natural selection. We'll discuss this more at the end of the year, but know that living things can die and therefore they must adapt in order to survive. Okay, please take a moment to jot these 8 characteristics of life in your notebook. We will elaborate on them throughout the year. So for now, you simply need to know what the 8 characteristics of life are and that they are how we classify organisms as either living or non-living. Okay, let's explore some significant scientific thoughts and theories about cells. I want to start with the Miller and Urey experiment. Stanley Miller and Harold Urey were American chemists known for their groundbreaking experiment that simulated the conditions believed to have existed on early Earth. This provided insight into the origin of life. During the experiment, here's the contraption they built. Miller and Urey introduced gases such as methane and ammonia into a chamber and subjected them to electrical sparks, which was supposed to simulate lightning. The result of the experiment was that they were able to observe the formation of amino acids. You guys know that amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. So, this experiment helped us understand how organic compounds, such as protein, could have originated from inorganic ones, such as the methane and the ammonia, which is a crucial step in understanding how life was created. The big takeaway from this was these 2 points. So, organic compounds can be created from inorganic compounds. The organic compounds could then combine to form a living being. All right, next, let's delve into the cell theory. It was developed over time through the work of multiple scientists, and it's composed of 3 key principles. The first one is that all organisms contain one or more cells. You'll hear this referred to as all living things are made up of cells. This acknowledges that every living organism, from the tiniest microorganism to the largest multicellular organism, is made up of cells. Number 2, the cell is the smallest unit of life. You might also hear this, the cell is the most basic unit of life. And this principle highlights the central role that cells play in the functioning of living organisms. Cells are not only the structural units that make up tissues, organs, organ systems, etc., but they're also responsible for carrying out our vital functions. For instance, in a human body, cells in the heart muscle contract to pump blood. Nerve cells transmit signals through the nervous system. So cells are the basic unit of life. They give us life. Number 3, all cells come from pre-existing cells. This principle emphasizes that cells do not spontaneously generate, but rather new cells are formed when existing cells undergo cell division. We'll elaborate on this in units 5 and 6, but for now, know that all cells arise from pre-existing cells. Cells can be classified as either prokaryotic or eukaryotic. To understand these terms better, let's break them down. So let's focus on our roots. The root word pro means before, and karyon is referring to the nucleus. U, on the other hand, means true, and karyon still refers to the nucleus. Essentially, these words mean that prokaryotes are simple cells without a true nucleus, and eukaryotes are more complex cells with a true nucleus. So please jot these characteristics down. There are 4 for each one. Please also know examples. When determining if a cell is prokaryote or not, you'll look at those characteristics. A bacteria, for example, would be prokaryote. It's a simple, single-celled organism. It does not have a nucleus and does not have any membrane-bound organelles. Plants, animals, fungus, protists, on the other hand, are going to be eukaryotic. They're more complex organisms. They are mostly multicellular, but a few protists are unicellular. Despite that, they're still eukaryotes because they have a true nucleus and they have membrane-bound organelles. All right, while cells can be very different depending on if they are prokaryotic or eukaryotic, there are a handful of characteristics that are shared by all cells. The cell membrane is very important. It controls what enters and exits the cell and does this to help maintain homeostasis. All cells will have a cell membrane. The cytoplasm is that supportive jelly substance that holds the cell's organelles in place. All cells will have a cytoplasm. Ribosomes are tiny structures where proteins are assembled. All cells have ribosomes. And genetic material, whether it's DNA or RNA, it's going to contain the cell's instructions for growth, development, and function. And as all cells are living, and growth is a characteristic of life, all cells have genetic material. Right. That brings us to structures that can be present in both prokaryotes and eukaryotes, but they're not in all organisms. Right. These include, number 1, a cell wall. This is that rigid structure that supports and protects organisms. Cell walls are primarily found in plant cells. We learned that in Unit 2. Remember, cell walls in plants are made up of cellulose. But cell walls are also present in some other types of cells, such as fungi and certain types of bacteria. Number 2, the flagella. This is a long whip-like structure used for movement. Many types of bacteria have flagella. It allows the bacteria to move through liquids by rotating it like a propeller. But flagella are also found in certain eukaryotic cells. Examples of eukaryotic cells with flagella would be sperm cells in animals, and then some single-celled protists like Euglena. All right, next we have cilia and pili. Cilia are short hair-like structures that are used for movement. They're found in eukaryotic cells. In us, they actually line our respiratory tract, helping to move mucus. They're also found on the surface of some single-celled eukaryotic organisms, such as Paramecium, where they're used for both locomotion and creating water currents to bring food particles toward the cell. So those are only going to be in eukaryotes, but they are in both multicellular and single-celled eukaryotes. Pili, which is also known as fimbriae, are short hair-like appendages found on the surface of some prokaryotic cells. They serve various functions, including attachment to surfaces, such as host tissues during infection, and the transfer of genetic material between bacteria. They're not present in all prokaryotes, but they are present in some, just like cilia is present in some eukaryotes. Now that we've discussed the different characteristics between prokaryotes and eukaryotes, let's focus on those eukaryotes. Plants and animals are both eukaryotic, but they do have some big differences that you'll be responsible for knowing. Let's start with plants. So plants contain a cell wall. They're encased in a rigid cell wall made primarily of cellulose. That structure provides support and protection for the plants. They also have chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are organelles containing a green pigment called chlorophyll, and it's responsible for photosynthesis. That's what allows plants to produce their own food. Plants have a large central vacuole. The central vacuole is a membrane-bound organelle that stores water, maintaining cell rigidity and aiding in cell expansion. It also serves as a reservoir for nutrients and pigment. All right, skipping over to animals. Animals, on the other hand, do not have chloroplast cell walls or large central vacuoles. They might contain smaller temporary vacuoles that are involved in storing waste products, though. They also have lysosomes. These are membrane-bound organelles that contain digestive enzymes. So they break down waste materials, cell debris, foreign particles, anything that the cell needs to get rid of. And we also have centrioles. Centrioles are cylindrical structures composed of microtubules. They organize microtubules during cell division. We'll discuss this more in Unit 5. For now, you just need to know that animals have smaller vacuoles, lysosomes, and centrioles, while plants do not. And then because some animals need something to move, they also have flagella and cilia, whereas plants do not. All right, that brings us to their shared organelles. Both plant and animal cells share several essential organelles. The cell membrane, also known as the plasma membrane, controls the passage of substances in and out of the cell. Mitochondria, present in both plants and animals, is responsible for energy production through cell respiration. The nucleus houses our genetic material and regulates cell activities. The endoplasmic reticulum, the ER, we have a rough and smooth ER, it's involved in protein and lipid synthesis. The Golgi apparatus modifies, processes, and packages molecules for transport. Ribosomes are essential for protein synthesis. The cytoplasm is that gel-like substance that holds organelles in place, and the cytoskeleton is a network of protein filaments that maintains cell shape and facilitates movement. All right. I would recommend making a Venn diagram or a chart of some sort so that you can memorize what plant cells have, what animal cells have, and then what both plants and animal cells have. Speaking of organelles, let's dive deeper into mitochondria and chloroplasts. Mitochondria, again, are found in both plants and animals. They're the powerhouse of the cell. They convert energy from food into ATP, which is cellular energy. In plants, chloroplasts perform photosynthesis, converting sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide into glucose and oxygen. These two organelles are very important, and we're going to focus on them more during our next unit, but they're also believed to be involved in a bigger role. The endosymbiotic theory. This is a well-supported scientific explanation for the origin of eukaryotic cells. According to this theory, organelles like mitochondria and chloroplasts were once independent, free-living prokaryotic cells that entered into a symbiotic relationship with larger prokaryotic cells. To help you remember this, please focus on the root words. Endo means inside. Symbiosis, we know, refers to that long-term relationship between organisms. In this case, in the case of the endosymbiotic theory, it's talking about one cell living inside another with a mutualistic relationship. The theory is essentially named after the belief that mitochondria and chloroplasts were once separate prokaryotic cells that were engulfed by a larger cell. They then likely entered into a symbiotic relationship, and over time, these organisms evolved together, ultimately giving rise to modern-day organelles and modern-day eukaryotic cells. The endosymbiotic theory does have significant implications for our understanding of the evolution of life on Earth. It is supported, of course, by evidence. There are 5 pieces of evidence you need to know. Number 1, mitochondria and chloroplasts have their own DNA. This DNA is circular, similar to that of prokaryotic cells. This suggests that these organelles were once free-living prokaryotes with their own genetic material. Number 2, independent replication. Mitochondria and chloroplasts replicate independently within the eukaryotic cell. This is similar to how prokaryotic cells divide. Number 3, they're similar in size to prokaryotic cells. Mitochondria and chloroplasts are roughly the same size as free-living prokaryotic cells. This size similarity is consistent with the idea that these organelles were once their own prokaryotic organisms. Number 4, ribosomes. All living things have ribosomes, right? The ribosomes found in mitochondria and chloroplasts are structurally similar to those in prokaryotic cells, but they're actually different from the ribosomes found in the cytoplasm of eukaryotic cells. This suggests that these organelles have their own protein synthesis machinery similar to prokaryotes. Number 5, double membrane layers. Both mitochondria and chloroplasts have double membrane layers. The outer membrane is believed to be derived from the host cell's plasma membrane when it was engulfed. The inner membrane resembles the prokaryotic cell's plasma membrane. So to summarize, endosymbiotic theory suggests that organelles, such as the mitochondria and chloroplast, were once simple prokaryotic cells that were engulfed into larger prokaryotic cells, creating eukaryotic cells. Because the relationship was mutually beneficial, the prokaryotes evolved together, and that led to the creation of complex eukaryotic cells. All right, guys, I am going to wrap it up here. We will transition to viruses in our next video. Please remember, this unit goes quickly. It has a lot of information. If there's anything that doesn't make sense, please schedule time at tutoring. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in class.